Hello, friends. Future Mike here. This summer, Ben and I are working on some behind-the-scenes projects for the podcast, so we'll be unlocking episodes from our Patreon. We'll be back with brand new episodes for Season 10 on September 1st. In the meantime, this episode is our discussion of culture critic Susan Sontag's 1964 essay Notes on Camp that we released for the EuroWhat AV Club in October 2023. If you enjoy this episode, we have dozens of more bonus episodes available at patreon.com/EuroWhat. For $5 a month, you can get access to that full library, as well as new bonus episodes every month. We just dropped our May 2026 episode, where we watched the full 1994 Eurovision Song Contest with friend of the show, Ted Van Houten. Our bonus episode for June will be about the HBO documentary Billy Joel and So It Goes, which was referenced in this year's Eurovision Grand Final. You can also follow our Patreon for free, which will get you access to our monthly newsletter where we get caught up on Eurovision headlines, look ahead to Bulgaria's preparations for 2027, get a sneak peek at what topics are coming up on the podcast, and keep track of North America tour dates for Eurovision acts visiting this side of the Atlantic. Sign up today at patreon.com/EuroWhat. All right, that's enough self-promotion. Please enjoy this discussion about Notes on Camp.
R.I.P. Susan Sontag. You would have loved book talk.
Hello and welcome to the EuroWhat AV Club, our exclusive Patreon podcast for you, our Patreon supporters. I'm Mike McComb, and I'm here with my co-host, Ben Smith. Hey, Ben.
Hey, Mike.
For this month's meeting, we'll be talking about Susan Sontag's essay, Notes on Camp. Have you read Notes on Camp before?
It's one of those things that feels like it's in the cultural ether, especially as a person who enjoys Mystery Science Theater and terrible movies. I feel like campy gets thrown around there as well as it with Eurovision. But I've never actually sat down and read this until now.
I was surprised that it was a relatively short read. I think it was only 12 pages. I think I was expecting it to be not quite a manifesto because no, I was expecting it to be a chapter or a series of essays perhaps. I'm also surprised that I've not read it before we decided to do it for this episode. And I've done a lot of media studies type stuff.
I was going to say, Mike, you're the one of the two of us that has a media studies.
Yeah. It's quite shameful. I have a film degree, but there are so many classics of American cinema that I have not encountered. I'm a fraud. That's what I'm saying. So as you said, camp gets thrown around quite a bit in our various circles, particularly the Eurovision circle. So yeah, just kind of wanted to see what all of the fuss was about.
Also, we were over on Bradley's podcast as guests, and it came up, and it was just sort of a nice little, oh, hey, we should do that. Or to quote Carly Kloss's pre-Met Gala tweet from a few years ago, we're going to look camp right in the eye. And then we're the most boring basic dress ever. That's the optional part for both of us.
Yeah.
Let's start with looking camp directly in the eye, and then we can see if we proceed to wearing a boring dress about it.
Yeah, a little bit of background. The essay was written by Susan Sontag and published in the Partisan Review in 1964. Partisan Review, that was a quarterly about New York City culture. It launched Susan Sontag's career as a literary critic. I think the most recent callback to the essay was probably the Met Gala where that tweet came from, because that was the theme of the 2019 celebration. I'm still not entirely sure what
fundraiser
the Met Gala is.
It's a fundraiser. Ultimately, it's a fundraiser. You pay a lot of money to go there, and then sometimes you wear a hamburger dress and get the memo, and sometimes you do not.
I think that was the thing about the 2019 Met Gala, where it was just a lot of people don't seem to know what camp is. I think that's a good entry point into this because it is trying to define this very ethereal concept of what is camp.
It's very funny to me that this opens with something along the lines of a sensibility is one of the hardest things to talk about, and then proceeds to try and nail Jell-O to a tree in terms of being here's what it is, a sensibility, or what we would now call a vibe.
One of the first things that I have underlined is to talk about camp is therefore to betray it. And it's oh, okay, so camp is Fight Club. So we don't talk about camp, episode over. Great.
Yes. We did it. Hooray. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
I like the idea of it being described as a sensibility sensibility throughout reading the essay. The thought that came to my mind is also the definition of obscenity. Like, you can't really say what it is, but you know it when you see it. And it's just kind of defined in negative space.
This is the most I have underlined a piece of work since undergrad for me, is just reading through this. I was like, oh man, this is real good. I love this. Yeah. More, please.
Yeah, so the way that the essay is structured is there's a brief introduction, and then there are a total of 58 notes that are, it's kind of the format of a post that you would see on LinkedIn, which I would argue LinkedIn posts are camp.
Oh yeah, no, just like the little business bro tone poems. Yeah, those are camp.
I don't think they're all distinct notes from one another. Like, they all kind of flow. It's really kind of more the numbering of the paragraphs.
It sort of circles around the same 3 or 4 ideas. I love that it calls out that one of the main areas that you still kind of see, oh, this is camp, is in movies, because movies are very accessible. But just the idea of seeing everything in quotation marks and trying to understand like where it's coming from is very interesting. Just sort of the idea of artifice and the idea of exaggeration of that artifice.
But it's not just that. There is this level of remove that has to exist, but camp isn't always successful on its own terms. Like, it really is such a regally concept, at least the way that Sontag seems to be defining it.
The one other area that really jumped out to me is the notion of it as being relative to time. Things can become camp, but I think they can also stop being camp, and you can't intentionally aim for them to be camp. Let's stick a pin in that, come back to that later. The notion of the canon of what is camp changing, one of the first little text blocks that you get is, here are random examples of things that I think are camp in 1962. I read this and then had too much time and wanted to dive into that some more. So I went to my local library and I picked up both God's Man, which I was like, I don't know what this is. And it's basically like a proto-graphic novel, but it's done all in woodcuts.
Huh.
And I don't understand how that was camp. Like, I engaged with the text. I read it. I'm just like, I don't get it. Zuleika Dobson is a campus novel that's set at Oxford, and basically a woman shows up and all of the male students lose their dang minds. Basically. I read through a few chapters, like, I get it. I get why this is kind of camp. I didn't finish it. Other things in the list. The Brown Derby restaurant. It's a restaurant that looks like a hat. Like, what's not to love? Yes, that's camp. Flash Gordon did not seek out the original serials, but did watch the 1980 movie, and that is aiming for intentional camp and kind of misses the mark.
Oh, you think that's intentional?
There's some level of it that feels like it knows what it's going for. Like, it's trying to capture some of the vibe of that. Like, I enjoyed it, but it's the sort of movie I would enjoy.
Right. I mean, I think it's also hampered by the fact that 1980 was such a weird year in cinema that, like,
yes.
I think there was probably more sincerity behind it, because it was like space opera. I think the whole concept of space opera is inherently camp, and maybe they were trying to be like, but we're not camp. It's like, you're camp. Sorry.
Yeah. Like, there's a tug of war happening with that movie, and I'm currently reading a book about the production process of David Lynch's Dune. That also brought that up. So, like, just like, it's a bit like, just space opera has been on my mind lately, and space opera is very campy.
Yeah.
Just thinking of like Barbarella in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about camp as time bound, like, a lot of the stuff that's getting brought up, Art Nouveau, Tiffany lamps, just like are like kind of 18th century, 1900 stuff. So just thinking like, you have tragedy plus time equaling comedy, maybe just media plus time on some level produces camp.
Oh, that's interesting. I think where I was coming down on this is context matters quite a bit, and she doesn't really get into the context of things. And I think in certain contexts, and I think with Eurovision in particular, like, if a song is a Eurovision entry, I think it gets put into this like camp box. Whereas if it's just a song that is put on the radio, not having that Eurovision context to it could end up changing the way that you are interpreting it or receiving it. Or am I making sense? I don't know.
Like saying that something is a Eurovision song puts a certain level of expectations on it that might not have otherwise if you're just exposed to it without that context.
Yeah, I think expectation is the right word there.
Well, I'm just thinking towards Eurovision, and again, like the stuff that gets called out, Gothic novels, chinoiserie, fake ruins, there's like a sense of caricature happening, and there was also a wonderful note about camp blocking out political content. that made me think, oh, Eurovision's not a political contest.
Camp. No.
The idea of providing time to kind of detach, but also build a sense of sympathy. I liked that a lot. But also the spirit of extravagance. I just have so many exclamation points. Ambition. A lady in a dress made of 3 million feathers. The glamorous, the extraordinary, the special.
It sounds like you have a lot of the same stuff underlined that I have underlined.
I did so much underlining with the first time I read this, and then I came back today and I added highlighting. The notion of camp as some sort of like measure of time against a piece of media. Many people who listen with delight to the style of Rudy Vallée, revived by the English pop group The Temperance Seven, would have been driven up the wall by Rudy Vallée in his heyday. Just like me every time I send my friends the worst Eurovision entry from 1986.
Oh, yeah.
This is great. No, this is awful.
Yeah. I think what I really appreciate about camp, because I've had kind of a prickly relationship with the term, or at least how the term is applied. Like, it feels like there's this sense of less than or sneering or condescending to whatever is being referred to as camp.
Yes.
One of the things that she does bring up, which I was particularly interested in, because there is this sort of queer coding to camp that also makes the sneering condescension, like, I don't know, maybe that's why I'm particularly attuned to it. But yeah, like, oh, where was it? It was a place where I think I wrote, Oh, yeah, here we go. Note 50. The history of camp taste is part of the history of snob taste. But since no authentic aristocrats in the old sense exist today to sponsor special tastes, who is the bearer of this taste? Answer: an improvised self-elected class, mainly homosexuals, who constitute themselves as aristocrats of taste. In the margin next to that, I said, also podcasters. So, hello, everybody.
R.I.P. Susan Sontag. You would have loved book talk.
She does get into the kind of queer coding of it, saying that homosexuals, by and large, constitute the vanguard and the most articulate audience of camp, and that homosexuals have pinned their integration into society on promoting the aesthetic sense. Camp is a solvent of morality. It neutralizes moral indignation and sponsors playfulness.
That notion of sponsoring playfulness, that ties in with another section I highlighted in notes 36 of like, there are other creative sensibilities besides the seriousness of high culture and the high style of evaluating people, is that it's like proto-poptimism kind of. You can also just like this thing that is sort of for the common people and the masses. You don't just have to read boring books. Right.
Or like just eating food, like enduring food because you need energy. And it's like, oh no, there's flavors and color and texture. Like there's so much more to enjoy about the thing rather than just its utilization purpose.
Camp taste is above all a mode of enjoyment, of appreciation, not judgment. Camp is generous. It wants to enjoy. My notion of camp is like kind of gets tied up in the notion of, oh, this is a license to make fun of a thing. Over time, in my own appreciation of terrible movies, it has not been because, oh, this is so poorly created. I think about the work of Roger Corman. His memoir is about how I made 100 movies in Hollywood and I never lost a dime. Like, he was making them quick and cheap because there was a demand for them. You have the original Little Shop of Horrors, which was shot essentially in a weekend on a set that was going to be torn down. Some of his stuff shows up on Mystery Science Theater, and it is his early stuff that's kind of schlocky and like, oh, we made this Western in 6 days, and you can tell. The Criterion Collection just featured all of the adaptations of Edgar Allan Poe he did, where you can see that same frugal eye in reusing these beautiful Gothic sets that were hanging around and using public domain material and like really just like elevating the material and just giving way too many delightful monologues to Vincent Price, who's just like chewing the scenery in the best way. Like, they are highly recommended. I would love just like one nice DVD box set of all of them. Studios. The notion of taking this lower B movie and going, oh no, this is also worth appreciating and it has its own merits, and you can see what it is striving for and achieving.
One of my favorite movies is Ed Wood. If you've seen any of Ed Wood's movies, like they're not good, but you can see the passion. You know what he's trying to do, and he's just so enthusiastic about it. And he just wants this to happen. There are just limitations there. Some of them are financial, some of them are talent based, but it's just like, oh, like the intention and the goal and like the dream is there. I think that is one of the things that I really do respond to with Eurovision. And I think that's something that comes up in the podcast quite often, where it's just like, oh, like it sort of works. And like you can see what they're going for here. It's not always going to be successful, but hey, I enjoy it. Like I think of like San Marino's entry this year, or like when we were talking about Solo and like comparing it to hotel art. Particularly when you get to the point where she's wearing the bebe dress at the turquoise carpet. This is 100% camp, and good job. Congratulations. You have achieved what I think you were going for.
Yeah, and it's like just on the edge of self-awareness enough. Because that could easily tip over into to being too self-aware. Because again, I think you can't intentionally do camp. And as this calls out, intending to be campy is harmful. I love the examples it gives of like the effort that goes into this and the intention, because you have an Art Nouveau lamp where there's like a snake winding around it. Like that's great. I've seen like 20 of those at the House on the Rock in Wisconsin, which is a really good monument to both camp and hoarding. Busby Berkeley musical numbers. The first time you see one, it just kind of strikes you just because it's like, no, there's literally 200 people on this soundstage doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like Esther Williams' swimming choreography.
Yeah, just anything with the scale of people that took, and just thinking about the number of takes it took to get that right the first time. But then you look at things that are like sort of twisting things into, oh, we're aware of this and we're making it intentionally campy. So like the two examples that came to mind for me, one that is going to, I think, a little bit more accessible than the other. Reefer Madness became a midnight movie because its 30s moralism about marijuana was taken to this hilarious extreme. It's not knowingly aware that it's sort of like tipped over the edge into being camp. But Reefer Madness the musical takes all of that subtext of what's hilarious after the fact and sort of makes it the main text of the movie, and it didn't really work for me. Similarly, one of the movies that gets featured on Mystery Science Theater, Hobgoblins, is a very 80s, clearly knocking off Gremlins, kind of campy. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say it's full camp, but years later, after it got picked up by the show, the original creator of that movie made a sequel, and it's awful in a completely different way because it's way too self-aware of what people liked of the first one. It's caricature taken to, like, the wrong place.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, like putting this in sort of a Eurovision context, the thing that immediately jumped to my mind in this was quote unquote joke entries. Like I'm thinking like Dustin the Turkey, Sylvia Knight. There's an archness to it, but it's like it is a little too arch. And yeah, like I also had that on my list. When you have the ones like I think it was from 1980 Eurovision from like the Belgians, or another one that popped up on my Twitter feed today of when Latvia sent Beautiful Song, where like it is a Eurovision song in quotation marks. I hated that entry so much. Like it made me not want to be a Latvia fan. And yeah, it took years for that to turn around. But yeah, it's like, oh, Latvia, what are you doing? And it's just like,
it like the entire song just feels like the filler lyrics while you think of the actual good lyrics.
That came out the same year as the Social Network song, where it's just like, okay, like that does seem to work as camp because it is being like self-aware, but there's still this like earnestness about it.
Yeah, no, I think Ralph Siegel just wrote that song. It was like, yeah, I did it. Boom, done. Next one.
Like he was trying to make a point, but I don't think he was like trying to be like incorporate sano about it. So
yeah, no, like there is no sense that he's constantly winking to the audience.
Right.
Another thing I liked about trying to put a net around whatever the heck camp is just the idea that it's a decorative art and it has texture. I think about the scrappiness of terrible movies. I think about when you can really see a nation doesn't have the budget, but they do have a dream and they're doing what they can. Because like when Moldova, My Lucky Day is like, we have 3 IKEA wardrobes and a dream. We are going to do some farce on the stage. And it was delightful and lovely.
I think Moldova has the camp quotient perfectly calibrated. Their entry this year, I think, would qualify as camp. Trenulental, I think that definitely qualifies as camp. And yeah, Sugar, like I like tried like playing back in my mind. It's like, wait, when would have their non-camp entry have been?
Wild Soul. Wild Soul was not camp.
It's been a while since I've looked at that one. Though, so.
Yeah, like I said that, and then the meet was like, "What? Wait, is it? Good for you, Moldova. Keep up the good work."
They are very good at the camp, whereas like a country like Sweden, I don't think they're necessarily camp, or at least would not fit Sontag's description of camp. Like I'm looking at note 28, which is, again, camp is the attempt to do something extraordinary, but extraordinary in the sense often of being special, glamorous, not extraordinarily merely in the sense of effort. Ripley's Believe It or Not items are rarely camp. These items, either natural oddities or else the products of immense labor, lack the visual reward, the glamour, the theatricality that marks off certain extravagances of camp. And I never really think of Sweden as being extravagant, even with like panini presses and treadmills or whatever props they have on stage. There's still a kind of a clinical nature to the presentation. Mm-hmm. And I think that prevents the sort of layer of separation that I think needs to happen.
A compliment you can give someone is saying that they made something look effortless. And I feel with Sweden, especially in like the last few years, you can see every bit of the effort.
Mm-hmm. Like they are putting in the work, but it's just like, oh, okay, like this is, you really want this, rather than it being like a wink. And I'm like, I tried really hard.
Oh,
this is great.
Thing?
Yeah. Oh, don't make me sing.
Thinking about Sweden and seriousness, the whole point of camp is to dethrone the serious. Camp is playful, anti-serious. Camp involves a new, more complex relation to the serious. One can be serious about the frivolous, frivolous about the serious. That was the point where I'm just like pulled out my notepad. Like this is why I like talking about pop culture and our show. I feel like I've described our show as just sort of being irreverently reverent about the contest. And again, like I have fun taking a very silly thing and going, okay, but like this is serious and it's good.
It's important, but it's not important, but it is kind of important. And it's just like doing that sort of tug of war. I think that is part of the capital C camp. And I think this is really helping me better understand like why I am so engaged with the contest and like the stuff that comes out of this contest, because it's just like, oh, yeah, like there are interesting conversations to be had. If there's a song that you don't like, there's a lot to be said. There's a song that you love, there's a lot to be said. And even for the stuff that is like right in the middle, like I'm thinking of Solo. These are conversation pieces, like 35 to 40 conversation pieces presented to a global audience every year.
Note 34. It's no longer, is this song good or is this song bad? It is a set of supplementary standards. One of the discussion questions we have had on the notes for a while is like, okay, but is Eurovision camp? My answer is slightly complicated. I don't know about yours.
I think individual elements of a given contest are camp, but I would not say the entire experience is camp.
The way that I phrased that was the Eurovision Song Contest as a whole contains campy elements, but is not itself camp.
Okay. Yeah, like, I think we are saying something similar. I think it may just be like a preponderance of the evidence, I think is where I'm going with it. It's like, well, it's 51% camp, therefore we have to describe it as camp. But but I think there would be disagreement on which elements are camp or not. Like we've called out a couple that I think are obvious examples of camp. But then I think of something like from Spain this year. I think I would argue that was camp.
That is, in quotation marks, a flamenco song.
Yeah. Well, I was also thinking about it where it's just like it's being presented with such seriousness, but it missed the mark. But it was still like an aesthetically pleasing performance. Like I'm hearing Nina Garcia in my head, like saying if something is aesthetically pleasing or not. So, and I think that is also part of it. I think meme culture is really helpful in defining like what is or is not camp, because if you're able to make a meme of it or make some sort of joke on Twitter or whatever social media platform we are migrating to.
Yes. Well, yeah, just thinking about when El Diablo was a thing and I just made the tweet that was just a picture of a taco, a picture of a tamale, and then a picture of Mahmood.
Exactly. And if you can make a meme of something, then it can become camp. I guess Sweden was successful in camp this year because all we could talk about was the panini press. And you know that was not their intention. So.
No. Eurovision, again, plus Eurovision Twitter at the time, was really good for applying meme culture to stuff like that. Cliff Richard performing Congratulations is kind of camp.
Yes.
Part of that is just time and also just going, oh, he's in the Austin Powers suit.
Yes. But then you also have like Sanit doing her interpretation of that song with like the clown Mardi Gras parade or whatever was happening with that. We're now talking about it as an art installation. So I think the transformative nature of things is also not complicating the discussion, but making the discussion a little bit more fun, a little bit more accessible. I feel like there could be more notes added to this essay now that 60 years? Yeah. 60 years, year that ends in zero. Pew, pew, pew. So
I spent far too much time thinking about, okay, what else would I put on the list of camp things? And like never actually wrote any down.
Just looking through the list that's provided, and immediately I'm hearing, "Good evening, America. I'm Chloe Sevigny." And these are like all things that would be mentioned in the course of a single Chloe video.
Yes. I've gotten very into camp.
I think it would also be interesting to read how something that was camp before may not necessarily be camp now. So my husband and I, we recently watched the series Feud.
Okay.
Which is about the making of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane and the feud between Betty Davis and Joan Crawford. And once we finished that, my husband suggested, oh, we should watch Die Mommy Die, which is kind of a play on that whole era.
Like the whole kind of like Psycho Biddy movie.
Yeah. And we got about 20 minutes into it. And it's just like, oh, I guess this was more transgressive in 1990 than it was in 2022. So we ended up turning that off. And it's like, oh, at the time that it was made, it wasn't 1990. I believe this was closer to 2000. But at the time that it was made, this is a camp masterpiece. Whereas now I think it would just be like, oh, this is just kind of a bad movie.
Time may enhance what seems simply dogged or lacking in fantasy now because we were too close to it. But on the flip side of that, time can also just go, okay, but you're taking like the low-hanging jokes. Do more. Comedy should age poorly just because standards change, times change. And I had like this whole notion mostly because when I was looking at how does the internet render camp, found another great tweet that was along the lines of, many of you are calling things camp when they are picnic at best. Where I'm just like, yeah, we need something that's like a step down from that, where like that this is where you put all of the actual bad art and the kitsch and the stuff that has sort of aged out of camp of like, oh, I see how this could be considered that, but no.
Throughout the essay, the word camp is capitalized. Usually when you encounter like, oh, this is campy or this thing is so camp, it's a lowercase c. That does make a difference. Like, I don't think it is just people not capitalizing things. Like, it's just, oh, if you were capital C camp, like that is like brand camp TM.
Yes.
Trying to describe something as camp. It gets into like a boring linguistic place. So
yes. Camp is the answer to the problem, how to be a dandy in the age of mass culture, not in Latin poetry and rare wines and velvet jackets, but in the coarsest, commonest pleasures in the arts of the masses.
Oh, yeah, the whole dandy discussion. It was just like, oh, that is exactly how I want to describe myself from now on. It's like, oh, I am the Yankee Doodleist dandy. So,
I mean, like, I think about it both in the type of media I tend to consume, but also being a person who wants to describe themselves as a foodie, but then has to immediately clarify, not like those foodies. Do I want to go to a tasting menu? Yes. Do I also want just like some really good street food? Yes. I have taken road trips where for each stop that we were making have mapped out here's where the good barbecue is and the good coffee and like the good beer, the high and the low. I went on a food tour in Iceland where we had some very, very nice plated dishes, but also we went to the hot dog stand. I will eat anything at least once. Thinking about what I just said and then just looking to another section I have underlined. The connoisseur of camp sniffs the stink and prides himself on his strong nerves.
Yeah. I think it's Note 55 that I most responded to, which is camp taste is, above all, a mode of enjoyment, of appreciation. What it does is define the success in certain passionate failures. I think that really kind of encapsulates how I try to consume culture and like maybe live my life. I don't know.
As a person who is currently going through a lot of the Canon Films movies, yeah, some of these are absolutely bad. And like, again, like my favorite terrible movie is The Apple. And like, there is so much in that movie that is just maximalist and very much trying to be a thing. And I respond to that a lot.
I'm so glad that we actually tackled this topic. This was a fun essay to read. We'll have a link to the essay in our show notes because most undergrad classes apparently assign this. Even though, like, I somehow managed to avoid all of them. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I did, but like, I have an engineering degree.
Yeah,
but
I have no excuse. So
yeah. Well, okay, so I do have one other thought. One of the things that stuck out to me in the list, I was going to make a fun small playlist for you, and then realized actually there's a lot of overlap between what we've talked about here and what we talked about when we discussed ABBA Gold.
Ooh.
And so next time the AV Club meets, we're going to talk about the middle of that Venn diagram.
Ooh, excellent. I guess with that, let's bring this month's meeting of the EuroWhat AV Club to a close. Thanks for listening and supporting the EuroWhat podcast. Both shows are hosted by Mike McComb, that's me, and Ben Smith.
That's me. Let us know what you thought in the comments for this episode on Patreon, or hit us up on social media at EuroWhat.
Do you have suggestions for topics for future bonus episodes? Drop us a line through our website at eurowhat.com.
For our next gathering of the EuroWhat AV Club, Scopatone,